Welcome to Three, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, and part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill Gross with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We move on to the quarterfinals. So this is the fourth round edition of the show. As we've been taking it round by round, we've finally lost one, and we recorded it at night. It was really late at night, so I posted it in the morning. I think Federer withdrew about 10 minutes after I posted our last episode of Three. That is our luck. We're going to get to that at the end. First, let's talk about the actual fourth round matches that were played. And we will start, as both Nadal and Djokovic advance, we will start with Novak Djokovic, who dropped the first two sets in a tiebreak to Lorenzo Musetti, but then really rolled the next three sets. And Lorenzo ended up retiring with Novak up 4-love in the fifth set. You know, it was close in one respect, but at the same time, it kind of wasn't, because Musetti was never actually close to winning the match and, you know, winning that third set that you need. But Joel, this was an enjoyable matchup, I thought, to watch Musetti battle Djokovic, especially in the first two sets.
Oh, it was just great tennis. I mean, Musetti, he's in his first major. He's in the fourth round playing Novak. He's just playing the ball, and he's just fearless. I mean, it was kind of like a sizzling shot-making delight. That backhand was unbelievable. And one of it was like a missile that seemed to fly over the net post. And it was just amazing to see how fearless he was playing. And Novak was looking a little tight.
I thought it was a tale of two matches. And when that happens, you can't really look at the match stats for the whole match because, you know, it's all mushed together. So you really have to look at the two matches within the match. And in the first two sets, Novak obviously lost in tie breaks. So this is one where I do like to peek at total points won, just to see, like, was Musetti really winning a lot of points there, or what was going on? Novak had him in total points in both those two sets. In the first set, he had him 42-37. In the second set, he had him 48-43. Now, I know that sometimes that happens, that somebody, you know, wins fewer points and wins a set or a match because of the tennis scoring system. But it's just a little barometer to see, is somebody getting lucky? Was Novak not winning the right points, you know? And really, the kid was hitting a lot of lines. And if you were watching the match, it might have occurred to you that this can't continue.
Well, I think that's really interesting. I think what was going on is Musetti was dictating a lot of points, and Novak was finding himself having to go for a little more, hit a little harder than he appeared to be used to. I think he figured he would just start missing anyway. And I think Musetti, like, we'll talk about this with Sinner in a different style, Musetti was saying, no, this is the shape of things to come. I'm not yesterday's news. You're not young, Novak. I'm young. And it's a little bit of what we've seen from these various next gens, but this was really impressive. And I think what it really comes down to, you know, I'm a big system person. I mean, you can imagine how, the way points go, the tiebreakers, and Musetti kind of sees the day in both tiebreaks in different ways. In the first tiebreak, it was tight, and he wins it 9-7. He's playing some more bolder shots. Novak was playing pretty kind of close to the vest, not really imposing himself much. And then the second set tiebreaker, Djokovic played terrible. He let a ball drop in that he thought was going out, and he goes down 3-0. He makes some unforced errors. He's just completely cowed by it all and not feeling good at all. But you're so right. He said in his press conference afterwards, I was actually more nervous when I walked on the court than when I was down 2-0. So that was impressive. So I think he figured, okay, let's just get to work. Here we go. I've got to win 3 sets now. I've done this numerous times. I think he was 30-9 in 5 setters. So he knows this drill. And then he just began to do his Novak. He did start to hit harder, it struck me, in the early part of the third set.
Yeah, especially with the forehand. It was almost like the tension was released from that shot. But we've talked in the past about how Djokovic doesn't make mistakes in tie breaks and that he hunkers down and he doesn't miss. And the misses were just shocking in the tie breaks to me. I was really surprised by them. in the same respect, I don't think Musetti was playing far above his base level. I think it was more Novak playing below it. I think that this is kind of who Musetti is. I think we're going to get used to seeing him compete for big titles on clay courts. And what's most impressive to me about Musetti is how he performs in the big moments under pressure. He is now a career 10-0 in tie breaks. And if you look at his record against top 20 players, it's now 6-4. He was somehow 6-3 against top 20 players at that stage in his career. It's just unbelievable. He's one of those players, and I always prided myself in being this guy too. The more people who are watching, the better he's going to play. And obviously, he's going to have more people watching than I ever had. So,
well, his test will be. You're right. I think you're right. I think this gave him win or lose a certain sense of the big stage, the big occasion. So then the test becomes, now you go back into the tour and you have a ranking in the 80s, 60s, 40s. How well do you bring it when people aren't watching you? And do you bring it just as much? I mean, again, and that's going to be a nice segue to besides Novak, the other victor we talked about today. Because, Nadal doesn't care if 0 people are watching or 20,000 people are watching. And I think that's going to be the big test for someone like Musetti to continue to generate the energy and the intensity no matter what. I love watching him play. I think he was just wonderful to watch. And those first 2 sets were just dazzling. I mean, and the drop shots and the sense of the net, serve and volley sometimes. There's some really, really good tennis.
Let's get a quick one-handed backhand comparison, Musetti to Federer. What do we think?
Amy?
Well, I'd have to kind of break it down technically, but I'm thinking that Musetti doesn't take it on the rise like Federer does or has the ability to do at the moment. But that could change. The reason that Federer is who he is because he has allowed himself to make adjustments in his game. So I think it'll really depend on who Musetti wants to be as a player. Does he want to be a clay court specialist, or does he want to be an all-surface player? And if he does want to be an all-surface player, then he might have to adjust and change.
I think he's going to look to someone, a person who just came to mind, and why I thought it was. I thought of Mikhail Yuzny, who was a pretty good grass court player. So you're right. Right now, Musetti has kind of the clay court swing. He's got the nice take back, and he relies on racket head speed to rocket through the court. So, and in certain ways, though, I think that as a technique is a little more elegantly constructed than Federer's, because Federer's one-handed backhand has evolved over the years. And so, but now Federer's is a little more the art of, okay, I'm timing, I'm movement, I can strike it sooner. And of course, that allows him to compete so well on grass and hard courts. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll see soon enough when Musetti plays at Wimbledon how he kind of handles that, because that's going to be his second major. And the tendency is someone like that goes to Wimbledon, they're kind of like, whoa, look at the ball, it's on me. So we'll see how he gets to, because it's not, this is not a 1987 clay court specialist with the long take back and deep swing. I mean, clay tennis is so much more offense, but it's just a question of, maybe you're right again, how he moves to the ball, how he addresses it. And I'm excited. I think he's going to be a fine player wherever he plays, but it's going to take a little while on the learning curve.
He's going to struggle on the quicker courts. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I'd be surprised. So I think you're right about that. The one thing I'll say about his backhand, I don't think the timing when he changes direction down the line is as good as I've ever seen from a one-hander. It's just so precise. He just times it beautifully.
Well, this was sweet. That's right. Well, that's also, I think, a little bit of the aspects of the clay and the training, because now when you're going down the line and you want to really drive it, it's not about taking the ball sooner. It's about properly striking the ball, right? Because the short hop thing is a little different. You're using incoming pace. I mean, here he was just generating it. He was just lashing, but it was very impressive for a while. But again, that's just going to be part of his arsenal. So it's a question of how he rounds out the whole package.
I don't know. Federer Gill takes the ball down the line on the backhand side pretty well. He did that well against Kepfer. I mean, when he's on with that, looks really good.
That's his competition. There's no doubt. Musetti's still a teenager, so it's hard to extrapolate. I just think Federer goes cross court, and he's trying to set up his forehand, but we won't spend too much time on it. I thought Musetti's variety backhand to backhand bothered Novak quite a bit, but then at a certain point, Djokovic was winning the points so quickly, they just weren't getting into those rallies, and it didn't really matter as much.
The other thing that Musetti did that I really enjoyed is how for Dan Evans in Monte Carlo, he used a slice. He used a slice to. He's not intending to draw an error, but intending not to get hurt as much, because the one-handed backhand driving it, as Federer has seen, you drive a cross-court one-handed backhand to Novak's two-handed backhand. That's not good. That's not good. That's not really, as they say, attaining much purchase. But if you slice it, he can't quite hurt you as much. It'd be interesting to measure the speed at which Novak's two-handed backhand goes when he feels a slice than when he feels a drive. And so then Musetti was slice, cross-court, slice, cross-court, boom, down the line. It's almost like using his own. It's just some really interesting ways that players use spin and pace in their own shots. It's fascinating.
It's like how Federer beat Novak in 2011 at Roland Garros, ending that long winning streak that Novak started the year on. I think the slice was an essential shot in that matchup. Okay, so as we said, we're gonna get to the quarterfinal meeting soon. Djokovic will get Matteo Berrettini. But now let's talk about Nadal. It was a deja vu because Jannik Sinner served for the first set as he did at 2020 Roland Garros. And once again, Nadal broke serve, won the set 7-5, and then rolled from there 6-3, 6-love. Now he has a handle on this matchup. I mean, he still hasn't dropped a set. So I think you can take a little credit, Amy, for kind of writing off Jannik, although he served for a set again. But, you said it wasn't going to be a problem for Nadal, and by the end of it, it certainly wasn't.
Well, when I tuned in the match, I saw that Sinner was up a break. I tuned in a little bit late, and I saw that he was hitting, just crushing ground strokes. 88 mile an hour, I think, was the average on the forehand or forehand winner. At one point, he hit a forehand winner for 102 miles per hour. And I thought to myself, the match is over, and not in Sinner's favor, even though he was up a break and he was crushing those winners. And the reason is I knew he couldn't keep it up. And I knew that over the course of a best of 5, those MPHs, that speed would come down and Rafa's would start to creep up. And what's that?
Well, or he'd miss because he wasn't missing, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're going to hit it that hard, the margins are it's hard to keep it going for that long. Yeah. So I thought Rafa's got him right where he wants him.
Just like Novak did when he went down 2-0. Got him right where he wants him.
I think margins is a word I think is really important here, because when you look at their two forehands, one's got a lot more margin than the other.
Mm-hmm. Although, people talk about Soderling and how he beat Rafa. So maybe that wasn't such a bad strategy. It's just, it's a hit or miss strategy. You're either going to go out in a blaze of glory with it and win, or things are going to go downhill.
Well, but this is the thing though. With a 19-year-old player, we don't know what the full upside, the full ceiling is. We don't know where that's going. That's the interesting thing about a young player. That's the dangerous thing. If it's Thomas Burdick, who Rafa would have played many times, he knows, okay, I know the ceiling. You're going to get 12 winners this way, but you're not going to get 25. But and I don't think Sinner's game is based on hit or miss. I think it's based on what Sinner's game is becoming. And that's what we're going to see. I mean, it's no different than when a young player, a young Pete Sampras was serving 10 miles an hour faster than Ivan Lendl. It's like, wow, look at this guy. But see, you're introducing new models. But with Sinner, he doesn't have enough of it harnessed. yet. And again, it is interesting, like the same exact situation. It's interesting. They say, what do they say? Ralph Waldo Emerson said, if you strike at a king, you must kill him. And both Musetti and Sinner learned today. Well, I struck and I didn't. And then everything turns, because you see, and Nadal, it happened sooner. Of course, Nadal is precocious. He won here the first time he played it, and Novak won it the 12th time he played it. So it took Novak a little longer, but you see how Nadal, and both of them, Novak served at 3-1, 40-15 in the first set. Rafa served at 2-0, had a point for 3-0, and then the youngster kind of turned it for a bit. Musetti's bit was longer, but yeah, you're so right, Amy. Then it just turned Sinner. Once Nadal got to 5-all in that first set, there it went. I mean, Nadal won, I think he won about 16 of 18 points to win the first set, goes up 4-0 in the second, even though Sinner catches up. It's just, these guys are so good, and you really see it vividly at these majors, don't you? I mean, this was a great example today of how they withstood these young challenges and just, okay, you had your fun. Yeah. Big time for me.
Yeah. Joel, why do you think, and then I want to get to Amy and your piece, why do you think, considering Sinner's game is predicated on offense, he certainly doesn't want to be defending against Rafa Nadal. He hit 11 winners and Nadal hit over 30 winners. How could that be the case when Sinner is relying all on his offense and Nadal can at least, play a two-way game?
Well, Nadal's better. Nadal's just better. And Sinner, like a little bit like Amy was talking about, he's not good enough at hitting them. He's not good enough. And also Nadal's faster. This is going to this is going to segue nicely into some of Amy's research about Nadal's thing. And I'll tee it up for Amy, and you can take it from what I say. A teacher said to me once that there are two games. There's the serve game and the return game. And we need to seek mastery of each. So, Amy, why don't you just talk about some of this neat research you've done?
Well, Gill, just real quick, I was going to say that there's more than one way to do offense. I mean, speed with your ground strokes is one way, but there's also, depth, there's angles in the court, and Rafa is master of just about every way that you can do offense or defense on the court. So the story that I did was on Nadal, and the way that the Infosys, which is the data provider for a few of the Grand Slams, including Roland Garros, the way they group the rally length is 0 to 4, 5 to 8, or 9+. And I just felt that that was an arbitrary designation, and I wanted to see if there was one rally length, one number in particular, where Nadal was excelling on clay at Roland Garros. So I got Infosys to send me some collated data about the rallies, and I found that on the third shot, which would be Nadal's serve +1 when he's serving, there was a big difference between the points that he was accruing on that and what his opponent was accruing, at least in 2020, where I got the full data set. And of the 7 opponents that Rafa played, the biggest gulf, the biggest differential was with him and Novak. So, I think in 2020, Nadal won 110 points on his third shot. That's winners and errors elicited. And his opponents won only 58. So you can see, the rally data, it's not just about short rallies and long rallies. It actually tells you where the point ends. And you can see where the point is ending a huge amount of time for him, for Rafa.
Well, so Nadal is taking charge of the point on the third shot of the rally, and the opponents are unable to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is how people, and again, I will use American sports reference. This is how people win Super Bowls. They got great offenses. They got great defenses, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
They hit you, and they don't let you hit them. And again, and in tennis also, I'm going to transcend that even more, because in the other sports, you put your offense on the field, you put your defense on the field. In tennis, these things are happening almost instantaneously. rapidly. And that's what makes Nadal, I think that's what makes him so compelling. When we talk about defense to offense, and it's not even so much that, it's almost kind of the weight of it all. And I think a lot of opponents know, for example, when they return Nadal's serve, better do something. Yep. And I was thinking about the lefty aspect of it too. In the old school, the lefty had the serve volley wide in the ad court, and the volley could do things. And that was John McEnroe, Rod Laver, very effective at that, Martina Navratilova. I'm wondering if the better way to be even a lefty is to be reborn as a Rafa, where the opponent has so even fewer windows. It's like they can't even, they hit it. Where are they going to return? So what if Rafa serves wide in the ad court? Where are you going to return? You're going to return down that sliver to his backhand. Unless you hit it really great, he's going to hit a cross court anyway. And remember, he's a natural right-hander, so it's going to be like another forehand for him. I mean, it's just a remarkable set of assets and ways, and your research so validates that.
Yes, and he did face Sinner last year at RG as well as this year, and both times he got him on that third shot. And you don't always register it when you're watching the match, because server serves, returner returns, the +1, and then maybe the returner makes some sort of error. Maybe he hits it long or something, and you don't always register, wow, that was really what was happening on the server's end that created the outcome of that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a huge reason why Nadal blew out Djokovic, was that he just had he was so much better on the +1 play. And it was a big factor in this match. And I broke it down on my own channel, and I had the 0 through 4 statistics. So here's what it was in this, and this is just a random match. And again, it completely goes into what you say, to what you're saying, Amy. So Nadal on his serve in points 0 through 4 shots, and you did 3, but I only have 4. Nadal had 24 finishes, so forced errors or winners, to 9 unforced errors. And he was opening with the forehand on over 80% of those points. Sinner, same data set, 0 through 4 shots on his serve, 11 finishes, 14 unforced errors. We can go through a million different factors technically in both of their games, from the serve to the return, from the defense to the offense, all of these things. But at the end of the day, this is what it is that Nadal is gaining an advantage so early on that his opponents aren't. So it was a factor in this match as well. Massive.
Well, I'm fast. The guy's fast and he's aggressive. So he just kind of smothers you. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's where I think Nadal has kind of turned on its head what's supposed to be defense, what's supposed to be clay, how I build a point. And it'd be interesting to see how when Nadal started, when he first hit the tour around 04, 05, I think he was doing that still kind of pretty well, but obviously he's done it even more and more better. Initially, it was a lot of the cross-court forehand. And you think it was pure defense?
I don't think his mind, no, but I don't think his mind, I'm not saying it was pure defense. He was not trained to go after the first ball. He was trained, don't miss the first ball. It's the first ball, right? So that's kind of a traditional Spanish way thing. Never miss the first ball. You didn't even make your opponent work. And Moya completely said, no, stop. You need to attack this ball. And I think that's been a big part of it.
Well, just imagine my surprise when I was going through the data and I found the person last year that had the most trouble in this category, or the biggest, was Novak. So if you're Djokovic and you are, let's just say, he's not thinking about it now, but let's just say that it gets to that point and he's preparing to play Nadal. How, knowing that the third shot differential in 2020 was 25-7 in favor of Nadal on this third shot. 25-7. I mean, we're talking about a sport that has razor thin margins on points. What do you do to prepare?
If you're Novak?
Yeah.
Well,
how do you fix this and at least bring the gap closer?
Right. This is the great thing about sports, because the initial thing was that it was Rafa and Roger, and then along came Novak to really around 2011, when Novak really hit his rich spot, and he kind of like politicized Rafa. When he beats him at the at the 2011 Wimbledon, US Open, that epic at Australia. And he sort of and so that's where Rafa, wait a second, it can't just be hitting my forehand cross court. This play worked against Roger. Yeah, this I did. And Roger got me sometimes. But look how I'm doing this well against Roger. But then along comes Novak. So that upped Nadal's ante. He had to learn to hit that off forehand better and maybe come to net more and something. So then Novak's got to think of some things. I'd be interested to see what the frontier for Novak is. I think some of it has to do with getting his way to the net and maybe borrow some pages from the newer Federer playbook. Maybe it's some more dynamic returning. Again, Novak's a little less of a third shot assertive guy.
But he does really well with the +1 on other surfaces, and even in matches where he's not playing Nadal. I mean, let's face it, the bulk of the points in this sport come on 0 to 4, okay? Novak is the #1 player in the world. He does really well on this metric, just not when he's playing Nadal on clay.
Yep.
Well,
destroyed Medvedev at the Australian Open final. It wasn't even close. It was a bloodbath in points 0 through 4. So that's absolutely true. But I don't think it's tactical.
Hitting it inside out. I'm sorry. He gets to hit it inside out or to a guy's backhand. Now on clay. Again, this gets to some interesting tactical maneuvering. What's Novak's play on a clay court or versus Nadal? He's got to deal with his forehand. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things here and a forehand can do a lot more. I mean, Nadal is kind of taking the forehand again into whole new levels.
Yeah, we got to get to Federer, but I'm going to say this. It's not an idea that Novak hasn't had yet. It's his forehand is not Nadal's forehand. And on this surface, that becomes a problem for him. So I don't think I don't think Craig O'Shaughnessy or any of his, anyone who's trying to figure out tactics, I don't think there's anything to figure out here. I just think his forehand would need to be better.
No, I think what you need to do, I think what Novak needs to do.
Hit your forehand.
Here's something else. I'll think a little bit more coach-wise.
Okay.
Novak, go play doubles in 4 tournaments, serve and volley every point. Make your volley that much better and figure out more ways to attack Rafa. Make your volley. Do with your volley. Look how much better Nadal has made parts of his game. So Novak, who I think is more of a reluctant, incrementalist volleyer, figure out ways, because it's you got to figure out where it all comes from. It's like a team making trades for certain positions. Okay, do this some with the forehand. Yeah, with the forehand, but this is pretty much the ceiling. I think Novak, there might be a higher ceiling out there for him with applying pressure to the net. I'm not saying he becomes Patrick Rafter. I'm just saying it's about how do you apply pressure. And it's not. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 3 days and it's going to help him win the French Open this year. But I'm just thinking about.
Now, I did look at and I was so happy that the good people at 538 let me include this metric, because I counted it myself and they usually don't take that kind of data. But I did remember the Rome match where Rafa played Novak, and the second set, remember, Novak got him 6-1. And I went back and I looked at all the third shots, and Novak held Nadal, and Nadal did not win a single point on his third shot in that set. So I've watched that match now 3 or 4 times. I think I want to go back and watch it one more time, because that was another match that it was
dude, please.
Yeah,
please,
2 sets went Rafa's way, and 1 set was a total bloodbath in Novak's favor. So I really want to go and study that set again.
So how is Novak repelling on that third shot? I mean, it's fun. It's like a detective show.
He probably hit great returns, but
he did.
Well, so then it's right. It's some really fun stuff. There's some real tennis stuff about okay, good returns. What return is going to keep me less? Is it
depth on the return? Now, this is just an eyeball. I have to go back and watch this match for a 5th time, but just eyeballing it, I remember really deep returns right at Rafa's feet. Although he's standing way back, just depth, it was not what Rafa was comfortable with. Right up the middle of the court, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, moving on to Federer. I know last night, Amy, you were really, or I guess it was 2 nights ago, you were really hoping that Roger Federer wouldn't pull out. So I'm just curious, now that there's been a lot of time to process and the deed has been done, do you feel any differently about Federer's decision to withdraw?
The only thing that I will say, in light of everything that happened with Osaka, is you really don't know what's going on with somebody. You can't. So you got to be fair, and he is one of the GOATs. So I've got a lot of people in my life right now that have a torn meniscus, and it's
Oh no.
yeah, like my coach has it. Several people that I know. Who knows? Maybe he woke up the next day and it was like a balloon or something. Who knows? But he seemed to be saying that Roland Garros was just his tune-up for Wimbledon, and that rubs me the wrong way, because this is a Grand Slam and it's a beautiful tournament and it's wonderful and special, and I think it was disrespectful to say that about it.
I concur. I think that was a bit of a disrespect for the game overall and what's even sportsmanship is. I think Federer, he sees so far down. He sees so far down the road for so many things. So I just get this picture of him Saturday night thinking, oh my God, it's 60 degrees, thick conditions. I'm gonna get to sleep at 4:00 this morning, and then I'm gonna wake up Sunday. So I wish what he had done Saturday night, I wish he had reached match point and defaulted right then and there and said, and just done that. That's what Tom Gorman did that in the semifinals of the Masters, and just done something like that. And then, because he'd made it clear all along that he wasn't thinking he was going to do that well at Roland Garros. There's no chance for ruin, all this kind of stuff. And I wish he had done that, and because it smacked of a little pragmatism. And yes, he's Roger Federer, so he can do these things. He's great, but he was fearing what might happen to him. And I don't think that's always how you go about competing. But I'm not gonna severely admonish him, because I don't like to do that. We don't know, right? Like Amy said, he could have woken up Sunday and it could have, who knows what the knee is, and we'll never quite know. And so he's gonna take his time and be okay and on to the grass. But upsetting.
I'm definitely the most pro Roger Federer in this situation among us. I don't assume that he knew that was the decision that he was going to be making when he arrived at match point against Koepfer. So that's kind of what I'd say to that. But overall, I think that Roger Federer has the right to just be in the Roger Federer business. A lot of people said, well, he shouldn't have entered the tournament. And to me, that would have been much worse for Roger Federer, would have been worse for the tournament, who still got 3 Federer matches, and would have been worse for the media and his fans. The only person who would have benefited from that is one lucky loser who would have gotten into the draw and probably wouldn't have made the 4th round anyway. So, I see this as a decision that selfishly makes sense for Roger Federer. And quite frankly, I just don't think that he should be overly, that concerned about his competition, his competitors, or the tournament. I think that, to me, I expect him to do what's best for him in this scenario. And it makes sense because he should want to play Halle. He does want to play Halle. Roland Garros, if it wasn't moved back a week, he wouldn't have this problem at all. And I don't even know that he expected to win 3 matches here. He himself said he was surprised. So that's why I'm sympathetic to Federer.
When, Gill, does a player earn the right to be in tennis? When do you earn the right to be in the me business? 3 Grand Slams, 6 Grand Slams, 14, 16?
I think, aren't you inherently in the me business in an individual sport?
Well, yes, in a lot of ways. This is the conundrum, and it's funny. This is where some of the things that happened with Federer and even Osaka are going to be interesting to ponder in the months and years to come. I mean, that's a long, long discussion that I'm having with everyone from psychologists to business executives, and it really fascinates me about the whole tennis gestalt. So I think maybe I should just button my mouth on this now and move on to the Roland Garros matches that Nadal and Djokovic still have to play.
Well, I'm glad we got 3 differing opinions on the Federer thing, because that's how the world is right now. I mean, people don't agree on the Federer withdrawal, so it's great, and that's what makes the show great. Let's go to Nadal Schwartzman. 10-1 head-to-head. I mean, I don't know. This has been a strange head-to-head, but ultimately, Schwartzman is, I would say, similar to Jannik Sinner in the sense that he doesn't threaten with his serve, and therefore the task for him is to beat Nadal by winning rallies over and over and over again. That just seems like the hardest job in the world at Roland Garros.
Yeah, good luck with that. We can get into this more in another show, but and we have debated Rafa's serve, and I have one feeling about it and you guys have the other feeling about it. And I just know that there are a lot of return errors at Roland Garros that come off of Rafa's serve. So Diego doesn't have quite the impressive statistics on that front. So, if Diego does some things really well that Rafa also does well, then I give Rafa the edge just because of his serve.
They make the return errors because they fear what's to come.
Well, that's your opinion, Joel.
No,
you don't have any, you don't have any data to back that up.
You gave me the data I got from you, which is what he does for the third shot.
Well, that's circumstantial, but you're saying that the serve itself is not a factor here. There has to be a baseline level of pace, depth, spin, something. It's not just fear.
No, it absolutely. I think a lot of it is. I'm not joking. I think a lot of it is that the opponent knows I better do something with this because soon enough, and it's similar to what. Okay, I'll draw from an old school example. John McEnroe had an excellent serve. He had one of the best serves of his time, but in a way, it wasn't so much an ace serve. It was like, I better hit a good return because the volley, he's going to kill me. And so McEnroe's first volley was Nadal's forehand. So I think it really does lead to a lot of return errors because where the space is, because you can't just, and I think that's a little less the case with Novak. I mean, I'd rather hit a return to Novak's forehand. If you drew the court in different colors and areas of where you'd be hurt, you're less likely to be put in danger by Novak's third shot. But I believe Novak's serve itself is more proficient.
I think that being left-handed is a major factor.
Absolutely.
So, but there has to be some truth to what you're saying, just so you know.
Oh no, the left hand. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm glad there's. But the absolutely lefty thing. It's the pattern. I mean, I think I think serve plus one forgets it all just because serve ret one, serve return one, and so this whole little sequence, in a way, that's the history of the game, whether it's the baseline game or the serve volley game. Serve ret what I do, and the great ones, look what they do with that. Look what Pete Sampras did with his third shot. Look what John McEnroe. Look what all those guys.
All right, it's great to see arguments that have played out in the group chat come on to the air. Speaking of serve plus one, Matteo Berrettini, that's what he has. Like, that's his bread and butter. That's how he wins. If he didn't have it, he wouldn't be in the top 20. But it's really, really great what he does with his serve, both his serve and his forehand. And that's Novak's task. That is a 1-0 head-to-head, but they've never played on a surface anything like Roland Garros, and his World Tour finals, so it's not really applicable. What are you expecting out of this one, Amy?
Well, this guy Berrettini, his backhand is much maligned. I mean, anybody will tell you, this guy's backhand's not nearly as good as the forehand. The interesting thing is Novak Djokovic knows that most of the time you rally to the person's forehand because even though it's great, it produces a lot of errors. So I haven't really crunched the numbers too much yet on Berrettini, and I know that on the backhand wing he also uses slice pretty effectively. So I'm interested to see how Novak's going to rally to Matteo in this one.
Yeah, I like this match. I mean, and I want to get some thoughts from you about Schwartzman, Gill, but before I want to first figure out stuff with I like this Berrettini Novak match. I'm intrigued by that because he's got some big power. I mean, a little evocative, though, a little more topspin, let's say Del Potro, where he can really do things with the forehand. and he's willing to. I mean, Fernando Gonzalez was another player like that way back. And so it'll be interesting to see how Novak kind of goes about tackling that. We'll see some real problem solving. But Gill, I want to ask you. You grew up in the Spanish system away. Schwartzman, not too dissimilar from your beloved David Ferrer. So what do you do? What's the plan if you're playing? If you're Schwartzman, you're kind of like a middleweight version of a Rafa. What do you do?
You need to, I think if you're Schwartzman, you need to be changing direction and moving the ball around the court to just try to keep it away from Nadal's forehand. You want to really be trading your forehand to his backhand. But then I think what Nadal generally does there is he goes down the line to break the pattern. So I'm curious to know what Schwartzman ends up doing when Rafa does that. I thought, Rublev kept stubbornly going back down the line. And most players will go cross court, including a lot of the time Novak. So, I don't have that's not a great answer in my opinion, but that's the best answer I have. I mean, I don't know that Schwartzman can grind here. You can't grind and win against Nadal. You need to do some damage, or Nadal's just going to get the rhythm and the consistency on the forehand. That's the big problem, is that Nadal's forehand as a weapon is so much bigger than anything Schwartzman possesses on the court. Like when Nadal plays Tsitsipas, at least there's two very scary weapons on the court together, right? And that's just not the case with Nadal Schwartzman. That's why it's such a pain of a matchup for him. And then my thoughts on Djokovic Berrettini. Novak loves this challenge. You're going to give me a big server, and all I need to do to have a huge advantage in the point is hit a neutralizing return that stays away from this big +1 forehand. And then in a rally, if I just pin you in your backhand corner, which I actually think he'll do more than rally to the forehand, that's how I need to win. Oh, great. I'm awesome at that. I think that's how Novak looks at a matchup like this. And I thought Andy Murray also feasted on these types that really, the big servers, not great movers, big forehands. These guys go, oh, wonderful. I'm in my return. I'm going to bet on that every day. My ability to keep it in your backhand corner, I'm going to bet on that every day. So I think it's a difficult matchup for Matteo.
Yeah, I agree. Even just from an experience point of view, I think it's a difficult matchup.
Yep. All right, let's see how it plays out. We've gone very, very long here, but so much going on in the world of the big three. We have lost Roger Federer, so it'll be Djokovic and Rafa Nadal from here on out. Quarterfinals next, getting to the business end. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. Rate and review on Apple, comment and like on YouTube, and we will see you next time on the next episode of 3.